Rocket League is abandoning loot boxes, but not before doing a last hurrah. Call of Duty Mobile has managed to make Black Ops 4 look, well, even worse. Sony are forming some alliances with cloud gaming on the horizon, and EA are as useless as ever. All of that and more on today's episode of The Roundup. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Roundup. Of course, you too can be tricksy, so be sure to like, sub, and smash that bell. And with that, let's get into the news. So, Call of Duty Mobile, it released this week, and it caused quite a stir with its microtransactions, but perhaps not for the reason that you would expect. So, developed by Tencent Games, the team behind the phenomenally successful PUBG Mobile, COD Mobile is basically emulating PUBG Mobile's monetization scheme, and thus far to great success, amassing $2 million in purchases across 20 million installs within its first 48 hours of release, so they're clearly on to a winner. Now, the game is a free download, it's got an optional premium battle pass for 800 COD points, which is of course the premium currency, and that premium currency currently is only containing or only relating to cosmetics. There's no like directly purchasing weapons or gameplay changing items. Now, they also on the pass give away increments of premium currency and also the occasional XP booster, so technically you can turn premium currency into XP boosters and use that to like level up your guns faster. And then outside of the battle pass, the game has like 150 levels of just regular progression. Now, why do I bring this up? Because this is obviously not a mobile gaming channel. Well, what makes the microtransactions so surprising is that COD Mobile is strikingly different to the model presented in previous COD titles, especially Black Ops 4, which has got worse and worse, culminating with weapon unlocks being inside loot crates, meaning that COD Mobile's standard unlock path of just playing the game and unlocking your weapons, that's more reasonable than the one that Treyarch have added to Black Ops 4 post-launch. And the realization that the monetization in COD Mobile may be more reasonable than its mainline counterpart, it's a startling one, especially given the franchise's history and the size of the audience. Considering that it's a free-to-play mobile game, you would expect its microtransactions to be more pervasive. But that's not really the case. The loot boxes in COD Mobile even have their odds being disclosed, of course, thanks to Google and Apple's respective loot box policies. Now, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft are working towards implementing the same disclosure policy on their platforms in the near future. But as it stands, COD Mobile is even slightly better than its better regulated than its bigger brothers. Also, being a literal free game means that it can do these free-to-play monetization schemes a little bit more reasonably than, say, a full-price game like Call of Duty Black Ops 4 that was full-priced, had a season pass, and then just went absolutely off the rails with its microtransactions. Now, this is not to make excuses for COD Mobile. It's not the type of monetization that I like, but the comparison I think is worth making because of its absurdity. Now, you might be wondering, is this Activision moving away from the Blops 4 model, trialing it with COD Mobile? I'd say likely not. Based on Gaming Revolution's leaks, it seems like they plan to do much of the same again, and with COD Mobile, it seems like it's in growth mode, trying to get as many users as it can. Now, that does mean that it could take a turn for the evil soon, or maybe it'll stay like PUBG Mobile, which, from what I understand, is mostly reasonable as a free-to-play. But look, the TLDR here, elements of Blops 4 are significantly less fair than COD Mobile, and you know what? That's just absurd. And it really just does show you how ridiculous they've got with their PC and console game. Then next up, it was revealed this week that Take-Two Interactive, the parent company of 2K, suffered a dip in stocks following the release of Borderlands 3. Take-Two announced that Borderlands 3 sold more than 5 million copies in the 5 days following its release, and that it was the fastest selling game in 2K's history. This did not prevent a 3% drop in stock prices in early trading, as while the numbers were indeed higher than Take-Two's initial expectations, they still did fall short of what some Wall Street analysts were predicting. Really, Wall Street's been pretty mixed on Take-Two regarding sales. Barron's.com reported that an analyst from Wedbush Securities, a financial services and investment company, basically just wrote an email that overly optimistic investors might be disappointed by the initial numbers, but that the initial sales were likely in line with the same analyst prediction of roughly 12 million units in Borderlands 3's first year. So basically, no doubt, Borderlands Borderlands 3 will have performed very well. Now, Take-Two are no stranger to the disparity between prediction and reality. They actually had another stock dip earlier this year as Red Dead Redemption 2 failed to meet analyst expectations, even though it sold 23 million copies in the quarter following its release. The revenue was still a little bit below analyst estimates, though much of that is because the analyst estimates were frankly not that realistic. Now, I think the fact that games such as Red Dead Redemption 2 and Borderlands 3 can underperform in an analysis sense is quite telling of the sorts of business models that, well, the investment community is going to be selecting towards. And, hint, it's recurring revenue, and that's why GTA Online and Red Dead Online are big focuses. Comparing GTA Online to the likes of Borderlands 3, well, I've got to wonder if Wall Street is going to see a missed opportunity there. Not that that would be ideal for people who actually enjoy Borderlands 3, many of whom I think like it because it does feel like more of a traditional game, and it's not saddled by being a perfectly balanced live service. Indeed, it's what allows Borderlands to have its, crazy weapons, the fact that it doesn't have to be balanced. Next up, we've known for quite a while now that Rocket League is going to be removing its randomized loot crates by the end of the year, but this week we found out what's going to be replacing them, which I think is interesting, just seeing what way companies go when they actually decide to kill loot boxes. Now, the official website revealed that the December update is going to be introducing the Blueprint system. Blueprints are going to work in a similar-ish way to loot crates in that after a match you will have a chance of obtaining a blueprint. Now, what's different is that when you receive a blueprint, it's going to show you exactly what you can create from the blueprint and the set price for it. Now, the old method involved keys, right? You'd buy keys to open the loot crate. That was random. That's replaced by a new premium currency called credits that will come in December. So basically, instead of purchasing keys very much in the CSGO or TF2 style way, you instead will purchase credits in order to fulfill blueprints. You know exactly what you'll get out of the blueprints. You can also upgrade your Rocket Pass Premium and purchase content from the new rotating item shop. Now, aside from a wide variety of new items, the item shop is also going to be home to legacy content from crates, so you might have a chance to pick up things that you missed. The website also says that any keys that you have in your inventory will automatically be converted into credits once the new update goes live, and that crates will also be converted into a blueprint from the same series. Now, there's also a rather large change coming to the trade-in system in that once blueprints go live, you won't be able to trade in paid content. Instead, Rocket League will be introducing a new inventory management feature, which will allow players to archive content they no longer want. The trade-in system will still work with standard post-game drops, though, so presumably the new archive is for undesired paid content. The thinking here seems to be that because blueprints are not random, then there is no need for players to be able to trade things in, I suppose. The new system is very much going to be an all sales are final kind of system. That's basically what they're doing. Now, the funny thing is that before the blueprint system goes live this December, they're just going, last hurrah, they're having one last wave of loot crates, which, given the reason why they're removing the loot crates, seems a bit self-contradictory. But overall, though, the new system at worst is going to be using a bit of FOMO as a sales tactic, that kind of thing. But I'll say it's more palatable than the simulated gambling of the old system. You will always know what you're getting for what you're putting in. I think that's a lot more fair. And sure, it's possible to overplay the idea of FOMO, like chasing sales, doing it too much. But I think fundamentally it's just completely different to the psychological triggers that are going to be going on with a simulated gambling system like loot boxes. So industry-wide, I'm always happy to see simulated gambling be less of a thing, and I think this is a good case of that. Then next up, we've got some interesting PlayStation news as Sony appear to be doubling down on cloud gaming, announcing that their PS Now service will be cheaper, pretty much half off, with the deal being further sweetened through the addition of God of War, Infamous, and Uncharted, plus Grand Theft Auto 5, which is a fairly interesting one. While Sony and Rockstar have no formal exclusivity arrangement, Sony CEO told Wired that GTA 5 will only stream on PS Now to the best of his knowledge. Sony have obviously been keen to negotiate with Rockstar, as Ryan told Wired.com that he preferred not to disclose the terms, but let's just say it's a good deal for Rockstar. And that is fairly interesting. Now, that Sony have chosen to do this really is no surprise. Google Stadia is set to launch next month, and Microsoft's Project xCloud is set to enter its open beta period later on. So really, it just makes sense. Cloud gaming is basically the next leap forward, as we talked about a while ago. I don't think it's going to matter too much for our market, but say for, the Asian market, I think it could do very well given the highly urbanized, dense population and how, a lot of those cities being new-ish builds or, having a lot of recent infrastructure work means they'll have the fiber infrastructure to actually make rollout of cloud on scale be viable, and how for a lot of these companies that basically is just a way to open up a massive new market, because consoles historically have been pretty small in China. But then of course the more Western version of that is basically just there's a lot of people in cities, they don't have consoles, so basically if you can just have a small streaming stick, well, it's just another screen that they can get money off, so it does make sense from a business perspective. Still though, I very much hope it's an additive thing and that it doesn't end up replacing running things on local hardware, so I obviously think that's a better experience. And with that, let's move into Quickfire. So we've got some FIFA news and it is a doozy. So aside from the Nintendo Switch version of FIFA 20 getting absolutely and rightly dogpiled on Metacritic for essentially being an inferior copy-paste of FIFA 19, which is absurd, EA are also in the news for basically doxing a significant portion of their competitive community. So, registrations opened this week for FIFA's Global Series, the competitive circuit which runs into the FIFA eWorld Cup. Now, players were provided a link to register for qualification, but it quickly became apparent that something was amiss because players found that they already had the login information for the event, just that it wasn't their own login information. So when some players tried to access this site, they were given the personal information of people who already registered. Now, this ranged from FIFA players to pros to streamers, and rightly so, nobody is happy. Now, as fun as it is to laugh at another EA bumble, these sorts of breaches in privacy for the industry, they're bad, and they never seem to go with punishment, such as the Fallout 76 support ticket glitch, which leaked players' private information. The only other high-profile case, which I think has actually progressed, is the class action lawsuit against Epic for hacked Fortnite accounts. Otherwise, though, companies just appear to be free to be careless with people's information, so it's really bad. Of course, the other big one recently was with the ESA, the huge E3 leak, and we're still waiting to see if there's going to be actual good formal action for that. Next, though, Destiny 2 went free to play this week, and it's been causing a bit of an issue for PlayStation users. In accordance to previous Sony policy, users don't need a PS Plus subscription in order to play a free-to-play game like Apex Legends or Warframe. But the problem is that the subscription is still needed for Destiny 2, and people are a bit uncertain as to whether that will change, because it certainly is a bizarre inconsistency in policy. You can sort of see how it would happen, though, because Destiny 2 just kind of got swapped over from premium to free. But yeah, we'll have to see if Sony kind of work that out, but an odd little thing. Then finally, Fortnite this week is showing us that nobody can remain king forever, as it was announced that its US July revenues were down 52% year on year. According to GameIndustry.biz, Fortnite still represents the gold standard for success in online battle royale games, but 2019 shows a downward trajectory. There are a number of reasons, of course, for Fortnite's decline in earnings and popularity, but I think it essentially just boils down to, first, it's no longer a fad, and second, there's a lot of competition in the market, and there are even viable alternatives in the battle royale market. Even Fortnite streamers have been tired of doing the same game months over, and they've been hopping over to other titles like Teamfight Tactics or WoW Classic. Ultimately, I think trends move on, and Fortnite's, it's had its spell in the spotlight. We're no longer seeing people go mad for Ninja and Drake doing something, right? So because of that, I think it's just calming down, and they're just going to have to be content with being an absolutely massive game that makes a ridiculous amount of money. So, boo-hoo for them. And that's it. That's it for today's episode of The Roundup. Be sure to subscribe and like, and watch out for the other video we're going to upload today, because Ghost Recon Breakpoint, in addition to being absolutely railed in reviews, has decided to do a 180 on some of the microtransactions that many outlets and users, ourselves included, came down on them like a ton of bricks for. So check that out later. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.